this was the first time in a long time that I had nightmares after covering a story.
The numbers roll in. These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 a piece. You are watching an auction of human beings.
Since this story went out, so many people have reached out to us and said, this happened to me. There's a huge community in France, actually, of people who have, managed to escape this environment. The International Organization of Migration has documented so much testimony. It is starting to appear, and this isn't something that we have pinned down, but just a sense that we have, that most of the migrants going through Libya will have been abused or exploited or enslaved in some shape or form. So many of them are saying that they were forced to work, that they were beaten if they didn't work, that they weren't fed, that they were tortured. Some of them were ransomed off. Their families were threatened that they would be killed if money wasn't paid. It's starting to feel to us like what we saw that night was only the tip of the iceberg.
We're now in Tripoli and we're starting to get a little bit more of a sense of how this all works. Our contacts are telling us that there are 1 to 2 of these auctions every month and that there is one happening in the next few hours. So we're going to head out of town and see if we can get some sort of access to it.
The auction that we went along to, there were 2 auctions happening on the same night. There was a main auction where there was, as we understand it, a far larger number of people. And then this was an overspill auction. And how it works is when they have an excess, as they call it, they say boxes as well as merchandise. Then they have an excess of boxes. They will call around their kind of circle of trust and say to them, do you know anyone who needs a gardener? Or do you know anybody who needs a house boy? Or do you know anyone who needs a driver? And put the word out through those kind of trusted circles. And so we were brought in by someone who knew someone. Also, it helped hugely, of course, that we were women, because in the place where we were, it was an incredibly conservative environment. So they didn't, while it was probably slightly eyebrow raising that women were wandering around late at night with a random man, it was also when they heard our cover story and we said we were looking for someone, they didn't feel threatened by us, because as far as they were concerned, we were just 2 women.
We walked in, and as soon as we walked in, the men started covering their faces, but they clearly wanted to finish what they were doing, and they kept bringing out what they kept referring to in Arabic as al-budaa, the merchandise. All in all, they admitted to us that there were 12 Nigerians that were sold in front of us. And I honestly don't know what to say.
This was so outside of the bounds of the believable that right from the beginning, when we first started hearing these stories, of course we believed the people who were telling them, but I think it's different to believe it intellectually as something, to actually absorb it is another. So I remember when we were first looking through all the testimony that we were collating, I went and spoke to a legal expert and said to him, so what is this? Is this debt bondage? Is this, could we call it modern slavery? And he said to me, it's slavery.
They come in their thousands from Niger, Mali, Nigeria, Ghana. It's hard to believe that these are the lucky ones, rescued from warehouses like the one in which we witnessed the auction.
We did actually speak to 2 of the people who were sold, and we ended up not filming because they were so clearly traumatized, and it didn't matter what we said to them. They wouldn't believe that we could save them or wanted to help them. In fact, we were trying to give them food. I was trying to ask them for a phone number, for a family member, and they were in such fear that even though I'd heard them at the auction speaking Arabic, and I knew they could speak Arabic, I was speaking to them in English, and they were from Niger, so I have very bad French, but I was trying to communicate to them in French. I've never seen people so shut down, so traumatized that they were not engaging. And I think actually that was the moment when the full weight of this kind of finally hit us. To see people so betrayed and exploited on every single level that they are unwilling to trust, unable to trust anyone. Apparently there is no limit to what we are willing to do to each other as human beings.